Yes, we're live. All right, and I gotta go to Instagram and click go live. Yay! All right, all right, all right. I'm gonna look at it from my phone so I can make sure we're doing well. Welcome, welcome, welcome into the space. My name is Angel, and I'm a soul healing coach, and this is the Soul Healing Coach podcast. I hope that everything you need, desire, and need to hear in this space tonight will be there for you, for your mind, body, soul, and spirit. Awesome. Okay, let's see something. Making sure we're live. Everybody good? All right, we got one person watching already. And so tonight, this is season 3. This is the episode number 2, the balancing act, how we balance it all. And these two guests I have tonight, y'all gonna have to help me because, all right, I am a Black Gullah woman navigating the South. And growing up in a Baptist church setting, we didn't use pronouns like they and them. I am learning. I am in this. My heart is in this. But yo, we have Symba with us and we have Tangie with us. Y'all say hello and welcome to the stage. Symba, want to go
Hello.
first? Introduce yourself.
Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Symba Luna, they, them pronouns. I am from Chicago and I currently live in South Carolina in Myrtle Beach, which is a big change.
Awesome. Okay, Tangie, want to tell us about yourself and welcome to the stage.
Sure. My name is Tangie B. I'm originally from South Carolina, Conway, South Carolina, and I currently reside in Baltimore, Maryland, where I'm a paraeducator for second grade. And I also am a musician, producer, and artist.
You know what? We got some talent in the room. So, Simba, tell me a little bit about you as in your business and what brought you here to South Carolina.
All right. So, story time. No, but I'm just kidding. But no, really. So I am an entrepreneur, but I'm also, many things. I'm a massage therapist, I'm a narrator, I'm an editor. I do lots and lots of different kinds of things. And so initially, like, it's so interesting because my spiritual journey started through my massage therapy career. And then what's brought me to Myrtle Beach or South Carolina was really an ancestral thing. My ancestors really wanted me to be close to the water, and I wanted to stay in the South. So,
Wow.
um, a lot of it is interesting because it's like some of it is like, because I was just going off of a lot of what they told me. I didn't do any research. I didn't do any like. I didn't look up where I was going to be and how it was going to be different from where
Okay.
I'm from and where I've lived in other places before. And so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it was kind of a shock when I got here because I kind of just was like, all right, they say go, so I'm gonna just go. And so yeah, I've been a massage
Wait,
therapist.
you just said that it said spirit said go, so I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
Ancestors said go, so I'm gonna go, and you just came.
I just came. I didn't really think that.
Woo! Obedience. Okay.
Yeah. So the obedience is good and not so good sometimes. I think I
I
know
think that's for everybody. That's for
like
everybody.
I was trained to be obedient. Let's talk about that. But
Mm.
I was and sometimes that was to a fault in terms of like not always um looking at what I wanted or thinking about how certain things would affect me. But when it comes to my ancestors, I'm pretty in that in terms of in our solidified in our connection and in
Okay.
the things, and I trust them. So I didn't really question anything in terms of like why or what have you because
Mm.
I like the beach. I like the South in the sense of the weather and certain things.
Mhm.
So some of it was just I know that I knew that I also wanted to get out of where I really was. I had experienced a lot of trauma where I had lived, and so I didn't really
Okay.
care so much about some of these things, like in terms of some of the things I've experienced. Like it wasn't really on my radar until I got here. But I think that has a lot to just do with like being part of the healing journey of actually like being able to stop and slow down and
Hmm.
feel feelings and see what's going on and then actually take stock and be like, oh, okay, well, now that I'm here, how does that affect me and how is this? And so then that's how we come to be, today, where it's like now I'm actually being able to think about stuff and be like, oh, so next time I move somewhere, I'm gonna do some research. We're gonna, at least prepare myself a little bit better, to know what I'm getting into.
Ah, you know what? What's very good about this is the fact that you brought in that spiritual part, okay? And so the three of us can kind of talk a little bit openly about this and being able to navigate your life as a non-binary individual. First of all, can you each define for us in the soul healing coach world what this looks like, sounds like, what it means? Because a lot of folks just don't understand, right? Or they won't ask the question. So I'm gonna ask the question. Explain it to me. Tell me what it means.
Would you like to go, Tangie, or?
Simba, you can go first. It doesn't matter. Or you can rock paper, scissors. Like,
I mean, I can go. I can share mine. I think for me and what I appreciate you asking the question. First of all, thank you for that. And so for me, how I understand non-binary is living outside of the gender norms that we grew up with, or the gender norms that we understand as far as man and woman, and there only being two genders. And so for me, non-binary is gender non-conforming in terms of like I might look one way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how I want to be seen per se, or like I like to switch it up. I like to, the fluidity of it all. Like I don't mind, the feminine. I also think about it in terms of like where gender is an assignment. So
Oh, okay.
when you
Okay.
are born,
Okay.
they assign you one. They tell you that you are one or the other. It doesn't always come with chromosome tests. It doesn't always come with
Mm,
it, it's literally genitalia, which I feel like is nobody's business.
I
So
hear that.
I think some of it in terms of, being assigned, for me, I was assigned female at birth and I don't identify
Okay.
with that. And so because I feel like it's one particular box, and
Hmm.
it's for me, gender is the spectrum of experience. And so
Hmm.
you have a female experience. I feel like I identify as a Black woman because that's a little bit different than
Okay.
woman, but
Yeah.
time it's like that's in between, and in community I'm okay with certain things and being called certain things, but then outside of it, it's like I don't relate to white womanhood, I don't relate to that in that way.
Okay.
So I think
Okay.
it's also everybody has may not necessarily feel how I feel, it's like
Hmm.
the, the point of even saying non or binary is also giving people a chance to create their own definitions. And so
And I think that's why I
amen.
asked you. That's why I asked you to define it individually, because what I found is when I finally ask the question, or am so bold to ask the question, I would say that uh, is I get different answers, and so I'm
Hmm.
very open to hearing that. Tangie, can you explain to us what non-binary means to you and how you show up?
I mean, I agree with Simba. Gender fluidity. I see myself as masculine and feminine energy.
Okay.
Sometimes I lean more masculine, sometimes I lean more feminine, and sometimes I'm just in between. Um, I usually present myself in my mind, I'm in the middle. But I guess outside looking in, a lot of people perceive me as masculine leaning. Um, but I don't necessarily care how people acknowledge me. Um,
Mm, okay.
I embrace she, her, him, he, they, them. It really doesn't matter. Um,
Which I
to
think is
me
two
because
different perspectives, right? Here, I know Simba, you've
mhm,
been very clear, like I'm they, them. And Tangie, you're coming from the perspective of I can use all pronouns because you feel
mhm,
like you embody all of them.
yes, exactly.
I'm sorry, and I think I cut you off. What you want to continue your thought?
Oh no, no, no. That's it in a
That's it.
nutshell.
That's in a
Yes.
nutshell. So Simba, you moved from where again to here?
So I went from Chicago to Atlanta.
Chicago to here. Is it totally different um navigating from being in Chicago to coming to South Carolina and being fully accepted or seen?
Yes, I feel like there's a lot more um I think because Chicago is so large,
Okay.
there's a lot more examples of experience.
Hmm.
Like I think that non-binary people and trans people are everywhere, but I think it's a lot easier to find them in inner
Okay.
cities, in places where there's a lot a larger population. Whereas, like, I don't think that, in my experience here in Myrtle Beach, they've been harder to find, but I don't think that means that they don't exist. You know.
Mm. And Tangi, you moved from where I'm actually located now. You moved from Conway, South Carolina, to Maryland. Tell me about, like, is it different? Is it more accepting, or people fully see you, accept you? How is it different, if anything?
I will say that it is a different experience from living in Conway, South Carolina. I felt like when I was there, I couldn't fully be who I was, who I
Mm,
felt that I was, who I saw myself as.
okay.
Um, and that was part of the reason why I left so abruptly because I kind of made the decision to move abruptly. Like no
Yeah,
one
yeah.
saw it coming at all.
Okay.
Um, but my experience here, there's still you're still gonna have people who are judgmental and who stare at you and try to, they wonder or they talk
Mhm,
amongst themselves underneath their breath.
mhm.
However, I will say that where I live, it's more accepted.
It's more
It's more
accepted.
accepted in the church. It's more accepted in the workplace.
Mm,
I feel more comfortable, but I still so even though I feel a little more at ease here, um, I'm still like it's one of those situations where you still have to guard yourself and you
ah,
still have to be cognizant of the fact that there are folks who are just not nice. And so I'm still learning to be comfortable with who I am, not so much internally but like because of the external like my environment, if that makes any sense. So
I definitely hear that. So now you went there, we got to go there. So let's talk about for you two. Why you do that stuff? But you know, but
I was,
you know,
no,
we
it's
go
good.
there.
I was thinking,
Let's
listening.
go say it again.
I was just thinking and listening, and so I was like, "Go ahead."
Yeah, Tesla gave us a very good lead in, right, to this spiritual journey, right? So I want to ask you all, the first question is, how do you view God or divine? What is your name for God and how do you connect? Simba, we can start with you.
So I did grow up in church. I was, I guess, practicing Christian for quite some time. Um, so I think there are some parts of my spirituality where I still take from some of the things that I learned growing up. I don't think that there's like a complete rejection of everything per se, but um,
Okay.
I don't. I believe in a creator, and I believe that
Mm,
creator have a gender. Um,
Okay.
or I believe that creator could be all genders because of
Mm-hmm.
the kinds of people that the creator has made. And so I think that I have learned in connecting with my ancestors and in my ancestral journey, ancestral veneration and things like that, I I have been able to come to that place in terms of like a piece around like my
Okay.
upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
Although like there are things I didn't necessarily care for, by growing up in the church,
Okay.
spirit was always there. Spirit was always with me. That it didn't. And so I've learned that like the physical location of where I was is not as important. And I see God, and for me, God is a manifestation of everything we see around us, as far as nature, as far as whether you're looking up at the stars, or even when you're in
Mm-hmm.
you're communing with other people. You are
Mm-hmm.
witnessing a version of a creation that God has made. And so there is, you know, for me, I think that coming out of the church is also being able to help me where my spirituality wasn't so confined to just one place. And so, I mean, in terms of
I'm
gender, right?
I'm stuck on this. I'm stuck on that one line of a version of creation that God has made. Like,
Each
you
and
took
every one
me somewhere with that. We're not gonna leave that alone. I'm putting it in the chat so we can come back around.
is.
Um, Tangela, please give us your perspective, Tangie B, of how you're showing up in the sense of what God means to you or divine, and how you interact.
I mean, God is, you know, God is. Um,
Mm,
I have come to the realization that, you know, I am exactly who God created me to be. I'm
mm,
living in my truth and I don't feel shameful
okay.
at all.
Mm-hmm.
God
Mm-hmm.
is love and I don't know, like God is God has been like the most consistent part of my life journey. So I don't know, like I I trust that God has made me in God's image.
Mm,
I don't refer to God as just he. I feel like God is more than just he.
yes,
You know what I'm
yes,
saying?
yes,
Has to
yes,
be.
definitely,
Like,
definitely.
um, um, I mean, I agree with what Simba said as well. Um, I feel like we try to minimize the
Mm,
vastness of who and what God is. You know what I'm saying? Um,
okay,
yeah.
okay. I definitely hear that. Ooh, so you took us deep again. You know what, Tangie, you just keep taking us deeper and deeper and deeper, and I'm here for all of that. I'm here for all of that. You said God is. That's it.
God is.
God is. You know that took me to that song, God is, but I won't ask you to sing it
Mhm.
for us tonight. We won't make you go there tonight. And then while you were talking, I heard that song in my head. Um, 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 Oh God, I can't pull it. I'll get it later. Y'all know I love songs. But I kept hearing songs and hymns roll through my head as you were talking. I think something that we do sometimes, no matter where we live, right, is when we begin to talk about gender or sexual identity or how people show up and how they choose to love or who they fall in love with.
Mhm.
And how we are brought into this world and what identities are placed on us, that we also begin to say who can experience God and how people can experience God, who has access to God and who doesn't have access to God. And do y'all find that at all in this conversation we're having or outside?
Yeah, I mean, I think something Tangie mentioned earlier too about like not really like I think that's a great space to be in to like not necessarily care how people acknowledge you,
Mm,
because you're so solidified like in your truth.
mm,
I think for me, some of the some of being clear around who I am for certain people is for the space. But I think that I don't necessarily have to always do that because, like
okay.
Tandy, said, I know who I am. I don't need people's validation for
Mhm.
that. But for the folks who are open to learn and open to grow, there that's important. And so I think and I think that's where part of it for me is the fact that I wasn't that free in church spaces before, where it's like
Mm,
have certain boxes and you have certain things. And so depending on where I go and who I'm speaking with, I do want to be clear so that, if you especially if you're open, we're gonna be honest and off
mhm,
up front and whatnot, because that
mhm,
was
mhm,
always, and I think that's a privilege now in my adulthood versus in childhood. You I had to be obedient and just follow the rules and do the thing. And I know some people who have had experiences where they was in their childhood they were still vocal about things, but that wasn't my
mhm. That
experience. And
wasn't yours.
I think
So tell
for
me a little bit about
church,
that. You went there. You went there, Simba. So go there. So tell me about a little bit about that childhood experience. Not in the sense of going as if you going into a therapeutic experience here on live camera, but tell me a little bit about how you and that child showed up. Like,
yeah.
what was your experience?
For me, I mean that child's responsibility was to be obedient. Like that was literally,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think I absorbed a lot in terms of like understanding what people expected of me at all times. And I know that any deviation from that would cause friction. And I think for me, the only friction I really cared about was my parents. Like I didn't really care so much about everyone else. But then when you're also in these church spaces, you're going to, whether I'm at like youth group without my parents or like the separation, whether it's like, you're with the children versus the adults, like, then you're responsible for, how you represent the family, how you represent
Mm-hmm.
who you come from. And so if you that similar to like with school or anything, like if you were to act out, now we gotta go tell your parents. And so then my mom was embarrassed not because I did something, because she got to come down here. So
Mm-hmm.
I think for me as a child, it wasn't important to acknowledge myself. That was
Okay.
not never a priority. And so what the priority was, do what you're told, do this, do these things right. And then I
Okay.
think, and I had a mixture of it. For me, I had, part of my growing up was in a black church, and then in high school I was in a more diverse church
Okay.
that were
Mm-hmm.
people who were not of color. And so then I
Mm-hmm.
think experiencing that around like puberty and things like, and then especially having like, so then European beauty standards, and then like the politics of interracial, it's like I think respectability played a big part in things like in my obedience, because it was like, definitely can't act out around like white people, like that's not,
Yeah.
can't, so I think that there's some of, especially why I went with certain spaces, why I am vocal now is because I was not able to be vocal as a child. And so it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm also saying this not so much to care about how the other person responds to me, but so that
Mm-hmm.
I said who I was and I was firm in that. And
Yeah.
then depending on the space, I can either talk to people or I can't, or I kind of
Mm-hmm.
know who I can mingle with and
I
who's not
gotcha.
who's not safe to be around.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And so now that makes a lot of sense why you're like, no, it's they them. Because for sounds like in your childhood, there's a lot of times that you were not acknowledged as who you were or given the opportunity to be vocal. Um, so I definitely hear that now. I definitely hear that. Thank you for sharing that with us. I know, you
Thank
put it
you for the
all
space.
out there.
It's all
Thank
good.
you. Uh Tangie B, tell us a little bit about that young childhood middle school thing. How
Uh,
was that for you?
oh my goodness. Lord have mercy. Good God.
Good God.
Jesus. No, I'm kidding.
We may need to call Jesus, Mary, Joseph, the disciples, and everybody else for this one.
So, my experience as a youngster, uh I mean, I was always first and foremost, I always knew um who I was, but I tried to conform to what I thought other people wanted me to be or the way that I should be. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Um, but I always knew. I knew since I was knee high. Like I knew. Um,
We always
Wow.
do. We
I always knew.
You always do, Simba. You say you always do. Tantal, you say you knew. Give me an idea of how young you were when you knew. I'm so curious.
Oh my goodness. I want to say like 6,
Oh wow.
5,
Yeah.
6.
I would give
Yeah.
it 4. I would say 4.
Yeah. I was really little.
Very young.
Um, I always knew. But anyway, back to you said middle
No, I
school.
think it's. I think, and I want to cut you off. I think it's important for people to hear that. Because this whole like your child
It's
does
not
not know who
it's
they are.
new.
Mhm.
It's nothing new.
Yeah.
No, no, no,
I
Yeah.
no.
think it's
That
we have the language for it now, where
mhm.
Hmm.
That's
it's
it.
more accepting to talk about. Whereas like back, I think when we were young, they use different words for it. Whether it was sweet,
Mm,
whether it was a little fruity, whether it was going the other way, or like whether it was just some other description. You didn't have a word like called
okay.
non-binary, but like people would know that you have that fluidity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
So it's
Tangy, I'm
not
sorry.
phase. I think I like what you said that with that, because it's not. I think a lot of people, when people are confused about especially pronouns and things like that, I think they're in
Hmm.
their minds it's because to them it's new to you, but that doesn't mean that it's not.
Mhm.
It's always
Mhm.
existed. We just may not
Mm,
have had the language as well as the
okay.
stage way
Mhm.
too.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I mean, I as a youngster, I was always referred to as a tomboy or,
Hmm.
like, so it's kind of like you're not. Why are you surprised? Like, why are you surprised? It's been right that you saw it before I did. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You
Yeah.
saw it before I did. But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I always knew. And as far as
Okay.
like who I was attracted to, I always knew that I was attracted to women. So, um, yeah. But
You always knew. You
I
always knew.
always knew. I always knew. Always. Always.
Was it hard to know that and not be able to express that or have that fully accepted or known? Or did you
It was
try to
very
express it?
difficult. Well, here's the thing. And I'm saying this in hopes that anyone who identifies the way that I do, or
Hmm.
somewhere in the ballpark, hopefully this will encourage them.
Yes.
I was more judgmental of myself than everybody else because at the end of the day, my family, my family, they're very accepting of who I am. And some
Mm.
of my family members like, girl, we already knew. Like, we knew, you know what I'm saying?
Look, yeah, I was
But
gonna say,
in
unlike
my
me, where I
mind,
was like, what? Who? Where?
in my mind, in my mind,
In my mind.
um, like I'm just like, my family's gonna hate me. They're not gonna love me
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna be the
yeah.
outcast. I'm gonna be the black sheep of family.
Mm,
Um, but that
never
wasn't the
that.
case. That wasn't
Never
the
that.
case.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the case at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as far as like the church setting, because I grew up in church, and I was a leader in a church
Mm,
ever
okay.
since six was it sixth grade? Yeah, I believe it was sixth grade. So, and again, home church when I go to visit now, they're very loving, very. It was just all in my head, you know what I'm saying? It was all in my
Uh,
head, and then it was also, Conway, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Even
yeah.
though my church was accepting, even though my family is accepting, um,
Mhm.
I'm still cognizant of the fact that I live in Conway, South Carolina, fire and brimstone all day, every
Where
day.
there's pretty much a
You know what I'm
church, there's a church on almost every corner, right? I
Bible
mean, not that,
Beltway, okay?
yeah, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think in the same sense as this too, though accepting, there are those moments though when we are or have been, I know I have been, and I think I've been at most of the local churches, where we've heard things
Mhm,
like, and I'm going to go here because I want to hear your perspective. And if this is too raw, be like, I ain't trying touching that, and I'll be okay with it.
gotcha.
But being, I remember. Let me tell you one of my experiences. How about that? And then you can give
Mhm,
me your reflection on that.
gotcha.
Being in a church in a pulpit and then having guest preachers preach things like this is the reason the way the world is today because people are sleeping when people are the same sex, or this is why you going to hell, like that whole fire and brimstone thing. I can remember one Sunday I invited a friend who was a classmate that I've been trying to get to come to church
Mhm,
for the longest time. Okay. And they are transgender, and that individual came that Sunday while this guest preacher was preaching this, and I almost lost like my breath. I could not breathe. I did not know what to do, and then I said, no, I know what to do, and I grabbed my stuff and I got up and I left. I got up and I left in sense of I do not agree with this and I do not condone this, and this is not the type of theology that I practice or
mhm,
believe in. But
mhm.
tell me your experience. So, what do you think about that experience? And if you want to share something from your perspective on what your experience has been, it may not be churches where I am in the local area of South Carolina. It may have been other spiritual places where you've been, and feel free to say it was not here.
If I may, I mean, you bringing up that story makes me think about what I said about safety, and I
Hmm.
think that what I began to realize as a young person and growing up was that if I wanted to express myself in a certain way, I could only do it in certain places, and i.e., the church being not one of those places because they have a clear message of fire and brimstone. And I think it also made it interesting because you're in these spaces or you're in this, say, like in this building, in this service while something like this is happening, and not and I think for me it was a subtle thing, like a subtle message that I kept hearing over and over again. And then it's like if you're looking around and you're seeing all these people say amen, yes pastor, all this, and then it's like, okay, so all these people wouldn't like me, or all these people wouldn't. And then
Hmm.
and for I think for me specifically, when I think about it, then my mom is sitting here too, then like all these people agree. And so how can I, including my mom, so how can I then like even question or ask a question or like
Hmm.
do the exploration in that
Yeah.
way, a way that feels safe versus
Okay.
like, now it's like, when I go, even in terms of my family, like I can have conversation with people and it's a safe place, and it's like, they'll say like, if this is too much, let me know, or similar to what you said too, where it's like,
Hmm.
I think that because we understand that the world, not maybe your family and not maybe your close circle, but the world
Hmm.
has a violence toward queer and trans people that a lot of times I think is enacted because in the spaces like church, it's popular to say things like that. So then for some folks, that's a justification for how they might treat people when we leave this building, or how they might talk about people, even if they don't know that someone in their close proximity might be trans or non-binary, or even identify just differently in terms of sexual orientation. And so I think that for me, it was just is a sense of like, who I'm usually doing a gauge, a test, like a almost like a thermometer. Like, let's see, like, because I mean, people. It's unfortunate, but the average lifespan of a Black trans woman is 35 years, and that is
Wow.
because Black trans women are killed at a high rate for being trans. And so I think that I'm great, and I'm grateful to say, and it's a privilege to say that I'm not a Black trans woman, and so that
Mm-hmm.
there's a different kind of experience that comes with even me being non-binary, even the way that people see me and perceive me, But it's also, I don't know that until I'm there. I don't know that until I'm in the space to see, what's going on, and
Mm-hmm.
how folks might react to me.
Okay.
And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's a thing about safety. It's a thing about making sure that, the folks around you are like, I think a lot of times that the lack of acknowledgement and lack of talk about things is because, you want to make sure that, someone's not going to be violent towards you. And gratefully, I think within your family and within certain spaces, it's not true, but I have, from community members and other people who have not had those experiences, who have not had
Mm-hmm.
even good experiences with their own families. People have,
Mhm.
been rejected and casted out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
lot of a lot of what people talk about with homelessness and youth has a lot to do with LGBTQ youth who have been kicked out
Yes.
of their homes because they were not accepted. And a lot of times I think that comes through the church, and that comes through, and not just the church, but the church as one of those authoritative,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
folks take word. We don't take the pastor word for it. So then, whether and so it may not just be the church, but I think also school, and then it just, so if young
Okay.
people don't see or feel a certain energy of like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm allowed to be myself here,
Yeah.
then go inward.
Hmm. All right, Tangie, talk to us.
I
Talk
mean,
to us.
I've had a similar experience as you, Angel. I was sitting at the organ playing, and a guest minister, uh she got up, started talking about um homosexuality, and I it's very obvious I'm suited and booted. I am very
That's
masculine
important.
leaning that day. And so I stop playing, I get up,
Mm-hmm.
I grab my things, I walk out the door, and I don't come back until next Sunday when she's not there. Um, and the reason why I did that is because I sat there for a minute and I'm just like, number one, you have to know or have an inkling that I'm a part of the community that you're talking about. And
Exactly.
then number two, why is it that I'm not I'm not good, but I am good enough? You can overlook my sexuality and how I identify and my lifestyle um, long enough for me to make the music ministry sound good,
Ooh.
but I'm not good.
Ooh.
I'm not good enough, but I'm good
Ooh.
enough to help your ministry, but I'm not good enough. Make
That
that
takes
make
me somewhere.
sense.
That takes
Make
me
that make
somewhere.
sense.
That takes me somewhere. And I don't know. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. It takes me somewhere because it's okay for you to be entertained by me, right? But it's not
Yes.
okay
To be used.
to be my full self and God still love
Yes.
me.
Exactly. God don't love me, but God loves my music.
The worship.
And loves to use me.
I didn't know the two could be separated.
Let me Lord have
Girl,
mercy,
let's
my
not
phone
go into a
dying. Let me
theological discussion here on this thing because, you
We already
know,
did. Already
we
did.
already did. We already did. And somewhere I gotta look it up because y'all done took me there. There is a scripture that says, and I know there was a huge thing, and I'm gonna bring this up. What was his name? I think I remember him called Carlton Pearson. Tansel, you remember him? A big preacher
I
a long
love
time ago.
I love him. And go ahead. I already know where you're going with it. Go ahead.
And his story, if you've never seen it, is on Netflix and in somebody's perspective. But I'm getting a little bit of feedback from somebody. But there was a uh, scripture that said, um, "For the work is finished for the whole world, for all. For the work is finished. The work has been finished." And the fact that we try to isolate who and whom that work is finished for gets me every time. Like, as if I just, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. That was a couple years ago, and Tangie knows this, where I started right before the pandemic, a church, a group, or organization that never fully got off the ground. That was called Revolutionary Love Fellowship, and it had the rainbow in it. Now the rainbow was in it because that's what Spirit showed me. Now I had no idea what ruckus this was going to cause and where it got. Ugh. Um, it was a rainbow, which is God gives us promises, right? That's what I meant. But Holy Spirit has a way of showing you something without you realizing what it is. And what it was is, I had partnered with another minister in the area at that time, and their church was open. I mean, fully open to all souls. And oh gosh, I'm gonna not call his name. Y'all give me a second. Reverend Washington, and sweet soul, sweet soul. They've since moved somewhere else. But something I loved was he continued to say that the doors of the church were open to all souls, to everyone. And so I say that because I wanted you all to be here to have these conversations, to bring it to the table, to say, who you are, how you show up, what your pronouns are, what you believe in the world, how you show up in the world, and what your experiences have been, because your experience is your experience. And something we continue to do in our world is we try to rewrite people's narratives. And we can't do that. We have to acknowledge that your narrative, as you just told me, from 4, 5, 6 years old, you probably didn't know what the LGBTQIA plus community was, but you knew that you identified in some sense as someone who loved who they loved. I'm going to say that. Who
Mm-hmm.
were attracted to who they were attracted to. The
Mm-hmm.
only difference is that in the settings of families or places that you went into, um, that was not the norm.
Mm-hmm.
That was not the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell me this, because what is the good gifts that comes from living in your truth? Parts of this, the balancing act, is being your authentic self and all the stuff you carry. And one of the things in a balancing act means you pretty much have to be yourself no matter where you show up, or you can get really off kilter. So tell me about showing up as yourself, like everywhere you go, in your authentic self. What does that look like, sound like, and feel like?
Showing up as myself
Mm-hmm.
is being unapologetically who I am. Um, um, Showing up as myself means um, being being no, it's giving what I want to receive. So treating everybody with love and compassion and respect. Um, Showing up as myself means um, it means it means embracing every part of who I am, my flaws and all, and um, creating the same kind of space that I would hope that others would create for me. um, Being myself
That part.
means being open. It means uh,
Mm-hmm.
being consistent.
Okay.
It means allowing myself to be a vessel in hopes
Mm,
that I can, in some way, change the environment that I'm in for the better. And that's it. That's all I got.
you know what? Yeah, give her all the snaps for that one. All the
That was
snaps. All
That's
right,
all I got.
Susan. That's all you got. That was a whole lot. That was enough, man.
that was a
That was a whole. That
sermon.
almost made me have some emotional response. I'm still sitting with it. I realized I had on black stuff and I can't be
Oh
crying on
my
here.
God.
All right, Simba, you're up. You're up.
I mean, I completely agree with everything Tangie said. And so I think to add on to that, I would say that in addition to being my most authentic self, when I can and where I can, it's also a lot to do with giving, living in my purpose in terms of why I'm here and sharing my skills and gifts without trying to, like, without even necessarily worrying about the control around how people perceive me. So, like, some of it is, yes, like being vocal and saying who I am, but a lot of times that, like I said, that's really for me more so than it is for other people. I'm still gonna use my gifts and be creative and share myself and share my story with people, um, no matter how they perceive me. But I think that's a big part of it. In addition to everything Tangie was saying, is that it's not my place to control people, and like if they understand and like necessarily worry about that. Um, I think it's my priority to know who I am and share that when I can, but it's not in the sense that like I'm policing everybody else's language or like, you know, nitpicking per se on every little thing, but it's being able to assess like, okay, but I am safe. I am here. I'm meant to be here. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to be and show up in who I am and what I believe. And I think acceptance and understanding and things like that comes with time. It comes with people who are willing and ready and able to explore that thing. And it may not always be my place to do the teaching and do the sharing, but sometimes it could be. And so I think it's some of it is assessing a little bit, like knowing what my role is in the situation, you know.
Yeah.
But otherwise, still be who I was called to be, who I've been meant to be.
Wow. Whew. This has been everything. This has been everything. And I mean that in every form and shape. I was halfway through the day and spirit was very clear with me. There's supposed to be somebody else. There's supposed to be somebody else. And what's crazy is Tangie sent me, we were texting back and forth about something else. And then Spirit was very clear. You need to ask her. I'm like, oh, okay, let's see if Tangie will come on. And um, because something I also know is you have to feel safe in the part of your life journey that you're in order to share your life journey with other people. And so I wanted to create a safe space where some you two could just say how you felt, your experience, how it is navigating um, in the South. Because that's a whole nother thing. I don't care what you're navigating, it's different in the South. Yes, the South has grown. Yes, the South has changed. But we still have some of those nuances and those things that still need to be worked out, and we still have some growing to do. Um,
Mhm.
and I would like to say this, as a kudos for, my hometown. There are a lot of folks here in Conway, South Carolina, who are open to
Mhm.
the LGBTQIA plus community. I think I missed another plus, but open in the sense of fully um, making space, right? And acknowledging and it being okay and not even it being, I'm going to say this, a thing, as if you are a soul and we want
Mhm.
you here. But
Mhm.
also acknowledging um, the intrinsic, I'm going to say it wrong, say the word for me, I can't say it. Hey, nobody can say it. The differences and also the things that are the same within all the things that we're talking about because I can't get the word tonight, y'all. Okay, trying to be professional, can't get the word tonight. All the different ways that we're moving and having our being, right? That you are important just as you are.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, well, we're just all people. No, you are important as a Black and brown woman, Black Creole and Haitian woman. You are important as you fully show up in this space. You are important as you are, as they, them, he, she, her, all of it. However,
Mhm.
you choose to show up in this world um, without having to carry all the other identities that's been placed on you.
Mhm.
And I thank you both of your hearts, as we say, bless your dear heart in the South. Thank you for being here.
Shout out to Conway's mayor.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Let's
Yes,
not
yes,
forget.
yes. Let's
Let's
not
not
forget.
forget.
Let's not forget
She's
who
shaking things up.
I was gonna say let's before our last 2 minutes, like the last 5 minutes, like yeah, let's give some kudos to that. She recently took her, stood her ground and her beliefs and her understandings that Conway would be an open and welcoming space for the LGBTQIA plus community, even to the point that it was almost like a challenge to her being reelected, but she
Mhm.
didn't waver and
She
she stood
didn't.
firm.
She didn't.
Um, and it was a time here in Conway for a minute. I mean, there was
Mhm.
protests, there was a whole bunch of stuff.
Conway
It
was
was
on fire.
on fire, like it was on the news, child. I was like, oh God, let me tell you what it reminded me of. And I did not go down there. Um, it reminded me of when we had in Conway the boycotts and stuff that was going on around the football players and stuff that were at Conway High School. And I know that kind of brings up a whole lot of other stuff. And I was young then. I was young. I was young, 8, 9, 10 years old. And I'll never forget that. And so it brought up, when I saw that turnout, I was like, it jarred me because I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, I know it's something race related. And no, it had to do with another social injustice that we're dealing with
Mhm.
in our world. And
Mhm.
so, shout out to the mayor, honey, because she's shaking all kind of stuff, but not only shaking stuff up, standing the ground and creating um, a space along with city council that we as Conway folks are excited to say we live in Conway. You used to say, oh, I live, 10 minutes from Myrtle Beach, 10, 20 minutes from Myrtle Beach,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Right. And now it's like, no, I live in Conway, like the little town that's about to be the next Hallmark movie. Like, we live here. We live here.
Can I say
All right. Any closing words? So I always give everybody at least 1 minute to a minute and a half. If you never saw anybody else again, I know you're like, oh, that's very morbid, but if nobody else got to hear the sound of your voice again, what would be your jewel that you would drop to make sure that was left in the earth? And who wants to go first? Because I'm going to put you on the screen by yourself.
I mean, I had something to. I think my response goes with even just piggybacking off what y'all just said.
Yeah.
I kind of think that in addition, and even with your other questions about how you can show up and things like that, and I think a big part for me, especially not being from here and being someone that has been in other places and then grew up somewhere completely different. I'm also just a big history person. I'm very big on knowing how things used to be or knowing where things come from. And I think, I have a lot of respect for the South in terms of the the fight that's been here in terms of in and around social justice since the beginning of the founding of this country and since the beginning of the genocide of the people who lived here before. we know this place as America. And so I think that knowing and even being able to kind of give grace and understand that um, the people are not always the institutions, and that being a separate, like me being able to kind of separate that in my mind, like the institutions have a lot of power, have passed down a lot of power to select individuals for a very long time. However, in addition, the people who love this place, who grew up here, who are who love people, are also learning and growing, and despite and or in spite of the institutions that have always been in place. And so I think that helps me in terms of like also growing to understand and love and kind of being able to know why things are the way they are, and then being able to be honest with the people who are here and share myself without being worried of that. So um, I think even in, as we've talked about spirituality as well, and thinking about mind, body, soul, and all of the connections that are from that and within that, is in addition to how we are connected to the earth and how we're connected to the stars and the planets, we're connected to each other. And I think that includes the history of where each of us come from, like you mentioned, even too with like the narrative and sharing ourselves, like in addition to knowing where we're going and where we want to go. And so I think that regardless of location, being able to tap into spirit, tap into the creator, and tap into the spirit inside in terms of who you are and who you like to be. I, you know, Location, geography, none of that stuff can stop you, I think, in terms of, especially when it's likely your position somewhere, whether you're from that place or you've lived somewhere for a long time, you're meant to be there. And so you're meant to show up and show people who you are, even if no one else is doing it, or even if
Mhm.
it looks a little strange, or even if you don't really have a blueprint for that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think in all of that is there's a piece that comes with that in terms of knowing that not every battle is mine, and
Mm.
I know what my battles are, and as I move forward, even in some of the difficulties of being in the South, I know I'm meant to be here, and so until I'm meant to go somewhere else, I'm meant to be myself in this place.
Amen to that. Amen and ashe to all of that. You dropped some jewels. I got to go back and listen to that. There was a couple of times I wanted to be like, "Oh Jesus, Amen, yes, yes," and be the choir, but I couldn't. I wanted people to fully hear what you were saying. Tansla, your minute and a half to shine. Go.
Oh, what was the question again? What would I leave? Like,
What's the jewel? Drop the
Lord.
gems.
So no, like, just give us some. You know how they say,
Some party
and when
words.
you give the closing remarks at church, like, what would be your closing remarks? What would you leave with the people?
It's okay. It's so churchy and traditional, but it's definitely something that I would say. And I don't need a whole minute. I would simply say, may the work I've done speak for me. That's
Hmm.
it. That's it.
Amen, Ashe.
That's it.
That's
Like
it.
I can I can I can I can say that I'm this, that I'm that, that I've done this, that at the end of the day, my work while I'm here on this earth is gonna be how people remember me, you know?
Mm,
So yeah. So hopefully everything that I'm doing now has purpose and is meaningful,
mm,
and it changes uh it creates some kind of change in a positive direction. So that's it.
Conservation.
That's it.
May the works. Mm, I can't even finish it. Like that took me to somewhere. I got to go do some praying later, as they say. I need to go in the prayer closet. And I thank you for saying that, because all day, we talk about identity, and we got 60 seconds or whatever. And I talk about identity, and what I've been feeling in myself is, sometimes I get so focused on, because my name is Angel, of the one having to be the messenger, right? Is that sometimes I now understand that my calling is to give a space and a time for others to share their messages. So I thank you all for bringing your stories. We have had what we call a meeting of the griots. So I am reading this book, actually going through this initiation process for the African goddess initiation, and it talks about the house of the griots, and the griots are the storytellers, honey. And y'all have been some wonderful storytellers tonight. So I thank you for meeting me in the house of griots, to be able to share your story. Y'all, this has been the Soul Healing Coach podcast on Spotify, on Google, on iHeartRadio, show. Also, I just want to give a shout out and thank you to my family and friends, and those of you who have been very, very agreeing and here and supportive as I try to birth whatever this is for the third year in a row and see how it goes. Thank you, Symba. Thank you, Tangie B. Shout out to Symba. Tell us your business and where you're located and how people can reach you.
Yes. So, Journey Spa is a mobile alternative healing space. So we do massage therapy, Reiki, table time massage, Reiki massage. So I have a lot of different things, stretching. And so it is a mobile service. So I come to you as long as you have the space for me to set up the table. I will be there in Myrtle Beach, meaning also Horry County. So Conway, Surfside, within reason, we'll work it out. But
Awesome.
for the most part, definitely accessible all over. And so
Okay.
you can follow my Instagram, Journey Spa _. I also have a page on Facebook, which is Journey Spa. And each of those pages has a direct booking link, which is journeyspa.as.me. And you can book directly, see the schedule, see all of the different
Awesome.
for in person and virtual.
Mm-hmm. Well, Journey, I just called you Journey. That's what we're gonna call you. Later, like when it's all aired, so please make sure you go on and put all those things in there for people to click and like. Follow Tangie B. Tell us about your music, what you're currently working on, and how people can listen to your music.
So I actually have a couple of singles out already. I'm working on some music as well. Few collaborations. Hopefully that'll be released within the next few months. You can reach me on Instagram at tangiebmusic. Email tangiebmusic@gmail.com. Yeah, my music is, I'll let you judge for yourself. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, like social media platforms, streaming platforms. Like, look me up, Tangie B Music. I'm there. I'm there. There's no excuse. Like Apple Music, wherever you can play music,
Wherever
wherever
you can play music,
streaming.
you can find Tangie B. So go
Find me.
find her. Go
find
download
me.
it. Go buy it. Go
Add me.
support it.
Even if you don't want to buy it, add me to your playlist. All of those things I benefit from.
All
So
those things
please go support.
okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Like, we need to know. We need to know all that. So I have a couple comments. We get off. So we have Brandon, who's commenting about how he feels about the what do you call it? Podcast we're on, y'all. It's late. It's late for me. I know y'all like it's 8:00. No, it's late for me.
No, it's late for me too.
So, so just a little note. So this is something I'm so glad Brandon brought this up. So it's Horry County. The H is silent. I can always tell when somebody has.
In Chicago, we pronounce our H's.
Look, born and raised in Horry, honey.
Horry. That sounds interesting. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting.
Horry County.
I've
been saying it wrong for over 2 years, and no one has ever said anything.
Nobody said. You know what? Because in the back of their mind, they're saying, "Bless her dear heart."
I give it that.
Oh, and then Tangie, Brandon says, "I heard it. I heard your music. It's very Erykah Badu-ish." And I
Oh,
agree.
thank
I
you.
agree. I agree. So yeah, if you've not heard her music, Symba, you need to check it out.
Definitely. Definitely.
Y'all have been a joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Y'all, please go continue to like, follow, and share the Soul Healing Coach podcast again on YouTube, streaming live. I don't know what happened to our Instagram. It looks like it disconnected, but we'll work on that later. Everything will be posted on all of our pages in just about 10 minutes, 30 minutes for you all to look at live again. So take care, be well. Thank you all for
Thank
joining.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure.